Israel and Lebanon. But those talks, or the idea of talks, was commented on by Gideon Saar, the Israeli foreign minister. He said that Israel has no intention at the moment of taking part in any mediation with Lebanon. Well, let's cross live to our correspondent, our Middle East correspondent in Beirut, Lina Sinjar. Lina, I don't know if you heard me talking to that advisor of Mr. Netanyahu, but when I asked him about what's happening with those talks, he said that Israel wants Lebanon to first of all deal with the Hezbollah issue before any kind of mediation with Israel. But of course, as I mentioned myself to him, being under continued bombardment from Israel makes that very difficult indeed.
Yes, indeed. But also there's another issue is that, you know, Hezbollah is not adhering to any calls from the government to stop this aggression. And they're continuing to firing rockets into Lebanon. They say that they are, having a legitimate right to fight back an aggression on the country. And these talks, I mean, there are lots of diplomatic pressure to find a solution to de-escalate, and especially France is pushing for this. That also came after the Lebanese president himself announced that Lebanon is ready to talk. And to remind our audience, Lebanon has been in war with Israel since the 1980s, this is the first invasion of Lebanon by Israel. And this is the time when Hezbollah was established, trained and funded by Iran. So it's decades of this group, taking control of the battle against the enemy, as they call it. They call themselves the resistance group. But I think over the past decade, they started to lose credibility, whether in Lebanon or in the region, as they started to be getting involved in wars in the region. They fought with Assad against the opposition, and they fought in Iraq with Iraqi militias, they fought in Yemen with the also Shia militias. This is all serving Iranian agenda, according to many here in Lebanon or in the wider region. And that's what's causing furious anger among the Lebanese, that they took the sole decision to get into war with Israel and drag the country into war, leaving large swathes of the country in rubbles and hundreds of thousands displaced, not knowing when they will be able to go back to their towns and villages, and if they will go back at all.
Barely recognizable as the medical center it once was. Lebanese health officials said 12 doctors, nurses and paramedics were killed in this Israeli strike in the southern town of Burj Kalawiyah. Israel has accused Hezbollah of using medical facilities for military purposes, a justification rejected by staff here. The team who worked here were volunteers providing services to civilian patients, says Mayor Mohammed Noor El-Din. Israel hit the building like this, so no one would survive. From its expanded exclusion zone in the south to suburbs of southern Beirut that some say now resemble Gaza, Israeli airstrikes are intensifying across Lebanon. And in the eastern Bekaa Valley, more twisted metal and masonry in the ruins of a family home. A strike which, according to survivors, hit as relatives gathered for their iftar meal. This was clearly a Hezbollah-supporting household. There are flags, even a picture of the late Ayatollah Khomeini. But did that in itself justify this massive bombing and the killing of an extended family of 8, including several children? Israel later said there were Hezbollah operatives at the house. But a surviving uncle said that nothing could warrant such action, apparently without warning.
Israel is wrong if they think that killing children and civilians will separate us from the resistance. On the contrary, it makes us more loyal to them. I'm even more steadfast in my support now than I was before.
As with many incidents, some facts are still unclear, others are painfully obvious. Diplomatic efforts are belatedly being made to stop an escalation into full-scale war. Wura Davis, BBC News in the Bekaa Valley.
Dr. Sahar Razavi, Director of Iranian and Middle Eastern Studies Center, the California State University. Hello to you. Thanks very much for joining us. We're hearing today that Donald Trump is saying that Iran is ready to make a deal, although the terms aren't good enough yet. We've also heard about these reports that more warships, US warships and perhaps Marines are going to be sent to the area in what looks like a sort of escalation, I suppose. What's your assessment of the current situation?
Hi, thanks for having me back. I think what we're seeing right now is a trajectory toward further escalation. I take anything that comes out of Washington, D.C. with respect to a potential ceasefire with a grain of salt. We know that Donald Trump, as I've said from the beginning, he prefers decisive victories and kind of good, easy, positive optics for himself. And what we're seeing right now is a further intensification and escalation. And to a certain extent, some of the things that he's claiming are still best understood within the framework of his preference for good optics for himself. I think there is a very real risk that we will see ground troops and a ground invasion and much more catastrophic consequences to come if that happens.
Yeah, and there's also this call, isn't there, from the US for other countries to get involved and start sending warships to help secure the Strait of Hormuz, this vital strait. Do you expect to see that call answered?
To be honest, I'm skeptical that it might be answered by regional allies, at least because Iran has done a really thorough job of extending the risk to the United States' allies in the Persian Gulf. And there's only going to be, as far as those Gulf monarchies and GCC states are concerned, more risk and potentially greater escalation toward them if they were to do that. So right now, I think they are weighing a sort of cost benefit for themselves to assess whether they should get involved at that point in getting ships through the Strait of Hormuz. But I think they're really stuck between a rock and a hard place right now.
If it does end up with boots on the ground, like you say, looks like a distinct possibility, that this would mean a long, convoluted conflict, wouldn't it?
I think so. Iran, in my opinion, with a ground invasion would represent a catastrophe orders of magnitude worse than the Iraq invasion of 2003. Iran has the largest military in the region, not the strongest, that's Israel, but the largest. And they have been preparing for this war for quite some time. They have around 3.5 times the population that Iraq did at the time of its invasion. And that includes 600,000 armed forces between the IRGC and the regular military, with an additional approximately 300,000 to 400,000 when you add in the other security forces, the paramilitary units that could be called in from other areas in the region, the police forces, the internal security forces. So we're looking at almost 1 million people. And when you look at the topography, the geography of Iran, it would be an extremely difficult task for ground troops to really penetrate Iran. And I think really that portends a lot more death and destruction and a lot more damage to civilians as well in Iran, civilian life and civilian infrastructure. While the military may carry on, there will be significant damage on both sides, I believe.
President Trump has issued a call to arms for other countries to send warships to protect tankers and clear mines in the Strait of Hormuz on his
Welcome to Ceasefire, where we look to bridge the divide in American politics. I'm Greta Bronner, in for Dasha Burns. Joining me now, two guests who have agreed to keep the conversation civil, even when they disagree. Leon Panetta, Defense Secretary and CIA Director during the Obama administration, and Mark Esper, Defense Secretary during the first Trump administration. Thank you both for joining me. Let's start right away with the U.S.-Israel conflict. This week, President Trump sounded very confident about how the mission is going. Here's what he had to say on Wednesday night.
We have very good news on the war front, namely they are absolutely being destroyed. Iran is being absolutely decimated. That's all I can say.
Secretary Panetta, Secretary Esper, you both have led the Pentagon. You obviously don't have intel on this conflict, but do you think decimated is the accurate characterization of where we are at? Secretary Panetta?
Well, look, there's no question that we have a military strategy and plan that is being implemented, which is primarily to go after Iran's war-making ability. Look, I think this president uses words like obliterated, decimated, etc., only to find that that hasn't happened. I think it's fair to say that they are probably doing a good job of degrading Iran's war-making ability. I think they've gone after missile sites, they've gone after drones, they've gone after all of their capabilities in terms of the Navy and the Air Force, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think they have clearly degraded their ability, but Iran still has the ability to send missiles into the Middle East, and they still have the ability to keep the Straits of Hormuz closed. And so we're not there yet, but we are degrading their capabilities.
Secretary Esper, how would you characterize Iran's capabilities?
Yeah, I think the United States military is well on its way to accomplishing its military objectives, and the objectives that I refer to are the ones that have been spoken
sweet. Sleep sweet. Sleep sweet.
Call on